as far as my dad, I just saw how busy he always was. For a lot of years, he did everything by himself. You know, he'd start very early in the morning, work all day, come home late at night. And it would be his work ethic is what I took out of that. But in hindsight, I think that's what's driven me a lot today. How I've built my business is I didn't want to end up like him, working all the time, you know, just to try to sustain. That was a good lesson that I pulled from just watching him work.
You're listening to Stories from the Top, an inside guide to better business development.
All right, so we're here today with Ezra of Filter Recon. Filter Recon is a family business that's grown through 3 generations to a business now doing over $2 million in revenue. Ezra, for people who have never heard about Filter Recon, can you just tell us a little bit about who you guys are and what you do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, I'm 3rd generation. We're basically a distributor, reseller of industrial filtration products that can mean air, fuel, oil, hydraulic, water filtration products, anywhere from under your kitchen sink to rooftop units on, you know, malls and places like this for HVAC, and everything in between, pretty much.
So why don't you just take us all the way back to the beginning when your grandfather started the business back in 1981. So what was the business like when you first got things started?
Well, he started in 1981. He was a truck mechanic, actually. He worked for a lot of truck shops down closer to the city. And he saw a need, parts costs were rising, and he saw a need where air filters could be cleaned, and he could cut the costs basically in half. So he actually started out, they would take the filters, the old filters, out of these like Mack trucks. A lot of people know Mack trucks. They pull them apart, take the old paper out. They were made of paper media, put new media in, and reseal them, and they would sell them to the customer. So that's kind of where he started, and he got his ins and outs, places where he actually worked, and he knew a lot of truck mechanics and truck shops, and it kind of started there. And they did that for a lot of years. My dad came into the business after high school probably, and kind of stepped into that as a 2nd generation. And then they moved to what we call reconditioning. They moved away from actually rebuilding the filters, and then they would just recondition it, actually just wash it with water, and did that. Sort of served the same purpose, but it was more cost effective than having to rebuild things. It was an easier process. And we did that for a lot of years up till about 2020 is when we stopped doing that.
Yeah, so was that like a big shift in your model going from rebuilding filters to cleaning? Was that like a new service completely, or just kind of a continuation of the same?
It was, yeah, kind of continuation of the same service, going from rebuilding to reconditioning. You said it was kind of one less step you had to do. You didn't have to source end caps. You didn't have to source the paper to rebuild the whole filter. You were just basically taking the filter itself and cleaning it out. And within that, they also acquired distributorships selling, I believe it was Wicks and Fram. A lot of people know Fram filters. You can get them at Walmart or really anywhere. And so they would sell new filters as well if they couldn't recondition an old filter. So those are basically the two services they offered. Was we can clean your filter. If it doesn't work out, we'll sell you a new one.
And then how long was your grandfather running the business till your dad got involved?
As far as ownership goes, I'm not sure how they made that change or when they made that change. My grandfather pretty much worked in the business till his death. He passed away in 2001. It would have been the late 90s when he kind of stepped out of that altogether. But my dad probably stepped in full time, I'm going to say probably mid-80s, late 80s, because I was born in 86, and I was his firstborn, so that was his full-time job, supporting family.
How was your grandfather's
business acumen? Was he actively trying to grow the business and streamline things, or was he just running it by himself? Was Filter Recon the brand back then, or did that evolve too?
Nope, it's always been Filter Recon. That's been the name since the beginning. He had no prior business experience that I know of. He did not go to college and graduated high school and did that, but he was worked with his hands his whole life as a mechanic. And just kind of, I said, he saw a need for something and a service he could provide, so he kind of jumped into it and pushed on from there. But I don't think his mindset was growth. I think it was sustainability, to provide a job for himself, to provide for his family, and then also for my dad and for his family he was starting. So
How old was your dad when he started getting involved?
Oh, I maybe do math now. 1986 was when I was born, so it would have been a couple years before that. He would have been early 20s, probably 21, 22, was when he kind of started into it.
And do you think that your dad had the same idea about the business? Was he continuing this as kind of like a job for himself, or did he have any vision of scaling the company?
I think he's always had a vision to want to continue to grow it in some capacity. I don't know if he had that plan in his mind or how he was going to obtain that. His main goal was, again, just kind of providing for his family. And he said to me over the years, he always enjoyed being his own boss because he could make his own hours, he could do his own thing, and nobody was telling him what to do, more or less. So, but again, it was mostly sustainability, just to provide for
What's the size of the business today?
Today,
how many people are involved?
Personnel-wise, we have my dad and I are owners. We're 50-50 shares in it currently. My mom is part-time admin help. And then I have one driver full-time. He delivers all our products to our local customers. And then I have my brother-in-law. He works with me as well. In different capacities. We have some other ventures we're involved in, so he kind of flip-flops back and forth between those. And then one sales guy on our force. So we're relatively small.
Has much competition popped up in this space over the years? Like, it sounds like your grandfather found a space that no one was really working within, and you guys have been established there a long time. Are there people kind of coming after you guys in the space now, or how are you guys dealing with that kind of thing?
When he started in rebuilding the filters and reconditioning, there were very few people that did that, and even to this day, there's very few. There were a couple. They weren't even competitors, I would call them. Other companies we knew that did it, but we never really crossed paths, and it was never a problem. Where there was competition was in new filter sales. As the times progressed from when my grandfather started, you started to see more and more manufacturers pop up producing new filters cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. So our competition was actually versus the new filter sales versus other people.
To get a new one then.
Correct. Yeah. Versus somebody coming in trying to undercut us and sell us, our service we already offer. So.
Were you guys doing any advertising or things like that? Like, you can rebuild your filters cheaper than you can buy new? Or is that kind of like the angle you were taking?
Yeah. Our tagline for a lot of years, I think my dad came up with, was clean out your filters, not your wallet. Because there was a time where new filters did cost quite a bit, and our service did save a lot of money for a lot of people. But no, he never did any advertising, maybe in the yellow pages when they were a thing, back in the day, but never really outside of that. Yeah.
And then at one point you were telling me how you went from doing filters in trucks to industrial filters for like large buildings. So tell me about that transition. Yeah.
So when I say filters in trucks, we did a lot of for site contracting, construction equipment, Caterpillar, John Deere. They're out in the field all day, every day, and they're creating a lot of dust. So their filters get plugged very quickly. So we focused on that market because there was a huge need for that. And a lot of companies were changing out filters once a day or even blowing them out during the day just to keep their equipment going. So that was a great market, a great segment for us when we were in the conditioning business. But with that has its ups and downs, its ebbs and flows, where they're usually very busy in the summertime because that's when building can take place, especially here in the Northeast. It's dry and it's nice weather. But then you come into the wintertime, it gets very cold and things slow down. So our cash flow did the same thing, basically. We had a lot of good highs in the summertime, and then cash flow suffered in the winter because there just wasn't as much business that way. So they said we did had some distributors selling new products, and that helps. But that market got tighter and tighter. I think 2008, with the recession and the housing market crash, a lot of construction companies went under, couldn't afford to pay their bills. The home building kind of stopped. So that hurt our business quite a bit. And it was around that time we were, trying to mull over things like we've got to maybe shift gears here, try to find something else to get into. And that's kind of when we made the shift to what we call the industrial sector. Manufacturers, producers of products, plastics, food, pharmaceuticals, things like that were consistently busy.
How did you go about making that kind of a shift from, like, if all of your business had been built around the trucking industry, how do you go out and find these new clients?
Mm-hmm. So we've had relationships with other filter companies, resellers, manufacturers through the years who were already in that industry. And we'd kind of buy things from them and they'd buy things from us. So we'd kind of share customers that way. And so we had some foot in the door that way, a little bit of knowledge. But it wasn't until we hired a salesman away from a competitor. He brought all his knowledge over of this new stuff we were trying to get into. And it helped our learning curve immensely to get into that, because he had all the resources already. We didn't really have to search. He had all that knowledge.
You got him away from a competitor. Like,
yeah.
how did you get him away from him?
He was looking for a change already, so it was kind of an easy cherry pick that way.
Okay.
So yeah, we hired him on and kind of took a chance. We didn't have a whole lot of money, didn't have a whole lot of cash at the time, to say, hey, look, we can't really afford to pay you a salary, to be honest with you, but what we can do is give you generous commission on everything you sell. And that's basically what we set up with him.
Was he totally commissioned?
Totally commissioned, yeah, starting then and still is now. So.
And but he was like totally on board with that. I guess he was already doing it in the past, so he was confident in his own abilities.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, he basically brought a big client list with him. He had a non-compete for a year, so that was tough. So he started searching for new clients that he wasn't taking from the old his old company. But after that 1 year was up, he was able to go out and really knock down doors, and that's when the orders started rolling in, because he had already secured that business. He already had it for many, many years.
So do you still have that commission structure set up today? Like, is it still all commission, or do you have like a base rate worked in there?
No, he still works on 100% commission, so which works out really well for him, and we think it's fair for everybody that way. He's never really asked to change that. We probably could at this time. We have the cash and the capital available. We could hire another sales guy under salary and lessen the commission, but he's always kind of enjoyed it, and it's worked well for him, because basically there's no glass ceiling for him. What he sells, man, he gets to keep. So it's great.
Is he like focused on bringing in new business exclusively, or does he reach out to your old clients and kind of drum up business from existing clients?
Yeah, so he holds the relationships with his clients, and he basically handholds them through the process, and he takes care of any problems, any issues that way. But he does go out and knock on doors and try to find new business as well. So like I said, we give him pretty much free rein to do what he wants, and we're just there to back him up and provide the service. He just has to sell it.
Is that like literally knocking on doors? He just going up to a big industrial complex. And
It's a lot harder to do these days with the security and the no soliciting. A lot of these places don't want you to even bother. It's very tough to get in a door. Even 10, 15 years ago, you could find a way around, we call the back door, or go into maintenance or something and literally find your way in some way else, and find those people that are actually working on machinery because they know the product.
yeah, that's wild. That's how so you literally just like find your way into a building.
Yeah, that's how my grandfather did. My dad did it for a lot of years, and a lot of these filter guys would do it. They just sort of bypass the front office lady or whoever's up front purchasing, even just go to the guy that actually needs the filter and knows the filter.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And then you just like start selling directly.
Yep. And
with those guys.
Yeah. Yep. So, but it has gotten harder to do that. So now you have to have some type of marketing scheme to get in the front door somehow, or a connection. So
like, yeah, what methods are you putting into place for, like, if you can't just walk through the front door, what methods are you guys using?
Currently, we do some cold calling. He does some cold calling, but a lot of our business comes from referrals, and that's how our business basically was started, was from referrals, and we've used that, and we find that's the best way to find a book of business, honestly. I mean, I'm sure a lot of other businesses do too, but we don't do any ad campaigns or anything online currently. We haven't had the need to, thankfully. I feel good about that, but there will come a time where the competition will get stiff enough where you got to put yourself out there, and somebody just got to choose you over the other guy, based on your marketing.
Right.
So.
And you've been involved in this business since you were real young, right? So tell me how you got involved.
Yeah, ever since I could walk, pretty much, is what I tell people. Yeah, it's a family business, so you're all involved. It's some way, somehow. It does, whether you're working or not, you're still involved. Yeah, I have memories of going down. So they had started in an old barn in Spring City, and we lived just up at the road on my grandparents' property, and work was at the barn just down the hollow at my great-grandparents' barn. So I could walk down there as a kid and just pop in and see my dad and my grandfather whenever, which was really cool. But I'd poke around and I'd do things. I'd box things up for them once in a while, when I was 10, 11, 12, whatever. So that was kind of my start into that. We were always involved.
And what's it been like having like both your father and your grandfather in business? Like, what kind of lessons have trickled down to you?
Listen, my grandfather, he was a mechanic, so he was always he was always dirty. His hands were always dirty. He was always working on something. He was always into trucks. He was always into tractors, fixing something for somebody, even if it didn't have to pertain to the business. So I saw a lot of good work ethic in him, and I think I pulled a lot of that out of him. They said he passed away in 2001. It was years before he actually suffered from ALS. So for a lot of years, he was basically useless. He couldn't do a whole lot of stuff. And I was 12, 13 at the time when he started to come down with that. So I, business-wise, I didn't gather a whole lot from him, but like I said, I noticed his work ethic, and that's what I got the most out of him. As far as my dad, I just saw how busy he always was. He worked a lot, because he was basically a one-man show after my grandfather got sick. And for a lot of years, he did everything by himself. The bookkeeping, the packaging of filters, the delivery work. He'd start very early in the morning, work all day, come home late at night. And again, it would be his work ethic is what I took out of that. But in hindsight, I think that's what's driven me a lot today. How I've built my business is I didn't want to end up like him, working all the time, just to try to sustain. So that was a good lesson that I pulled from just watching him work.
So,
Yeah.
expand on that a little bit. If you don't want to spend all of your time working, so what does that motivate you to do? Like, how are you building the business a little bit differently?
So I have sort of the same setup now. We're just over in Glenmore now, not far from here, and we were back in 2020. We were able to purchase a property where we could live and work. So I kind of sort of have the same setup. My kids are sort of seeing the same thing. Dad literally works right on the property right there, and they can pop in whenever. So anyway, getting back to the original point, but with my kids there, I'm trying to put processes in place that make my work easier, less time consuming and less hands on, if you will. So if my kids want to do something during the day, or we want to take a day off, or whatever, we can afford to do that. And I'm not feeling as guilty for skipping work,
Right, because the business is going to keep running.
The business has to go one way or the other, whether I'm there or not. Yeah. So.
Well, if you were going to give one piece of advice to somebody who was going to be inheriting a business from maybe their family, what would it be?
My dad and I always had a pretty good working relationship. I would say that would factor in a lot of whether you would want to inherit that business or not, and how that management or ownership structure is set up. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of advice I would give somebody that way, because there was a lot of years that I wanted to quit working with my dad.
Is it tough, like relationally, or?
It can be. It can be. Again, the older I get, the more I realize I'm very much like my dad. So recognizing those things. It's just learning to work with your strengths and your weaknesses. As I know a lot of people that have stepped into family businesses and it has not worked out well, or they've taken over businesses and they probably should have not, because either their dad couldn't let go, or they walked away altogether and didn't offer any help. My dad was always very good at offering me help. What can I do to help you out? I'm here to support you. And if you want to walk away, feel free to. I'm not holding you here. You don't have to do this. We can just close it up. You're not going to hurt my feelings. So he was always very flexible that way. Whether we agreed or not on certain things, he always was very gracious in that, So yeah, I don't really have any advice to offer somebody. It's situation really just depends on your relationship with who you're taking that over from.
There's good businesses and bad businesses. I guess it depends a lot on the structures that are in place, the culture and the relationships.
Yeah. I mean, you hear so many family businesses where a third generation or fourth generation comes in, they just take it over because there's money in it, and they've got a good job, but they don't do anything with it. So my dad didn't have really anything to give me, like cash wise. Like, here's a business, you can help me build it, and maybe we'll be something someday. So,
well, what are your goals for the business? Like, where do you want to take it?
So mine has always been sustainability. Again, my end goal has always been to provide for my family first and foremost, and then beyond that would be for anybody that works for me to be able to provide for them the best I can. Be flexible, be gracious with them, try to be the best employer I can be to those people. Not, a lot of my employees ended up being friends in the long run, but still trying to be a boss in the moment. Now my goal really is, to continue to build a business, but not work 24/7. Find ways again to keep this business going, but not be the business.
And if somebody needs to find a filter for their truck or their industrial facility, where should they go to get connected with you?
Well, the easiest way to go is the website, filterrecon.com. That gives all our contact information. That's really the best way. You can Google Filter Recon and I'm sure it'll come up, in some other listings as well. But just shoot an email, give it a call. I don't always answer the phone just because I'm out working, out and about. I usually give people my cell phone because that's typically the easiest way I can get back to them very quickly. But yeah, I mean, we try to be as responsive as possible. There are certain times I'm not, and I may have
taken a day off, right?
Yeah, I've taken. Yeah, that's right.
Way, so yeah.
I still try to get back to it. Hey, look, I'm out for the day, but I'll get on this as soon as I can for you. But yeah, so
well, that's awesome, Ezra. Yeah. Thanks so much for coming on the show. We got a couple other episodes coming up with Ezra in a little bit, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you next time.
Cool.
Stories from the Top is your guide to successful business development. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or find Edge of Cinema on YouTube. Stories from the Top is an Edge of Cinema production, hosted by Matthew Skura and Jeremy Schmidt. To learn more or get in touch, visit edgeofcinema.com/podcast.